Am I the a-hole for not wanting to ask my dad to add an amount of money to my sister's college fund so she can attend our dream school which I will be going to? Okay, so my parents got divorced when I was 14. When it turned out me and my twin sister were not my dad's bio children. Dad found mom cheating again with bio dad, and she confessed to it in a fit of rage. We had DNA tests done, but dad assured us that it didn't change anything and we were still his daughters. My sister had different ideas as she went to live with mom and bio dad. I feel this was it for dad, and he went through a rough phase during that time and lost his job. Then he used up all his savings to keep me comfortable at his own therapy. My mom somehow realized this and said she wanted control of my sister's college fund. And I still remember her exact words when she left our house. Enjoy it while it lasts. You'll come crying to me when it makes you homeless. Well, dad got an extremely well-paying job a few months after that. And we have been more than comfortable since, and dad has added a substantial amount of money to my college fund. I did meet my mother and sister a few times after that, but mom didn't want my bad influence on my twin, so we were low contact. So she didn't know the exact amount of money he was making. Now it's time for college. And mom called me yesterday asking me which university I'll be going to. I told her about my dream school and a few others, all admittedly expensive. She was silent for a few moments before she said she needed to go and hung up. Well, she called my dad, and she demanded to know how he was paying for it, because even the original sum of college fund wasn't enough for those universities. On learning the reason, she demanded he add the required amount of money to my sister's college fund, and a bit more because she has used up 10% of it. On what? She refused to say. My dad refused. So my mother called me back saying I was depriving my sister of a good college life. My bio dad and sister have also messaged me saying the same thing, and what my sister said hit hard. We both had discussed going to the same university, which is the dream school I'm talking about, but we thought at the time we couldn't afford it. And now I can and she can't. She says if I ask dad to do it, he will. And he probably will, but I feel like that's emotional manipulation. She also said I should give up a bit of my fund so both of us could at least have an equal amount, but I feel like that would be betraying my dad. Am I the a-hole? Info. My parents had 50-50 custody of me and my sister, but my sister didn't want to meet dad since she wanted to bond with her real dad. My dad did try to reach out to her, sat her down, and asked her if anyone was pressuring her, but she was adamant, so he had to back off. My mom said I had betrayed her, but didn't force me to visit, and my dad never had a conversation with me. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They made their choice and are mad now that yours has worked out better. If I were you, I'd show everything they've sent to your dad and let him make his own decision. Definitely don't give up any of your college fund. Any choices a 14-year-old makes shouldn't impact the rest of their life, but sometimes they do. It's a sad story all around, even for Opie, but neither her nor her dad are a-holes. You owe them nothing. Hopefully there can be healing sometime in the future, but I wouldn't count on it, or pay for it. Not the a-hole. I guarantee if Opie's dad hadn't gotten such a good job and Opie was struggling to go to college and had to take out loans, neither her mother nor my dad would have helped out. Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry some of the adults in your life failed you, and so glad your non-biological father has stepped up and been an adult anyway. Your college fund is your own, and you're being manipulated. Exactly. I detest people like that who only come to you when they know you're earning well. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your mom is especially an A for not trying to maintain a good relationship with you, and for saying you betrayed her. You're not the one who cheated on your dad. Your sister is upset, but she also went off on your dad and refused to see him. Your dad went through tough times and is doing better, so he's been able to pay into your college fund a bit more. He doesn't even have access to your sister's fund, and her mom has dipped into it. You and your dad sound okay, but your mom, sister, and her dad are abusive. You should share the messages with your dad, but also make sure you tell him that they're being unreasonable. Whether your dad pays more into your sister's fund here is irrelevant. It would be kind, but he's not an a-hole to not do it. Next story is titled, Update. Am I the a-hole for reducing the money I'm willing to give to my stepdaughter for college? Original story. I had a pretty wild youth, and one of the women I slept with got pregnant. She didn't inform me about this, and I was oblivious of my biological son, until about a year ago. He is 17 years old now. I have since become a bit saner and am happily married for 14 years. She has a daughter from a previous relationship who is 18, and they will be both going to college next year. We had talked about this when she was, and I had told her I would surely chip in about $30,000. Her grandparents from her dad's side are also willing to contribute money. Then last year, I told her that I may be able to contribute $40,000, but it was not a guarantee. This is a lot of money, but it took me a long time to save it. My son, on the other hand, has not enjoyed a comfortable upbringing. He has no support, and his mother is not in a financial position to pay for college. I want to contribute about $15,000, but we are running a pretty tight ship, and I don't think we can make any more cut without it affecting our retirement/savings. So I told my stepdaughter that I would only be able to contribute $30,000, and she was okay with it, before she found out we were also giving money to my son. She's very angry with me, and now she's being distant, more than usual. I think what I don't get is that it won't hurt her as her grandparents are willing to make up the difference. She's going to have the same budget that she can plan to spend on college. I feel a bit like an a-hole as I'm giving her the minimum amount possible which I had agreed on. I wish I could do more, but I can't. And I don't get why she is upset. I think I'm making the right decision here, but I know I have upset her and it is bothering me. My wife is not happy about it, but she's understanding. Now for the comments before reading the update. She's upset because you have another child taking your attention and money. It's irrational, but she will be upset and quietly jealous. This kid you didn't know about is suddenly dropped into your family's laps, and this is the first of many big steps that's going to be affected by one more person in the mix. She's seeing you give the extra you told her you would try to do to her replacement. You are by no way the a-hole supporting all your kids, but talk to people first. Please stop having discussion with your kids about what you might be able to give them. Anything you say they might get, they will expect they will get, because you are trying your damnedest to get it for them. That's the kind of miracles parents can pull off. And she's seeing the future where your attention and money might continue to be split. You need to start talking to her. This isn't just money that's the issue. Her family has changed without any of her input, and this needs to be addressed, both with your daughter and with your wife. Not the a-hole. It's also a stepdaughter, and the new kid is Opie's bio kid. There might be some subconscious fears about not being seen as a real child, and she might be worried about a sudden change to their relationship dynamic or that Opie will treat his bio son better than he treats her. I agree talk needs to be had where she can voice her concerns, and they can discuss what this might mean for their future family dynamics. Not the a-hole. You're being very generous to hand over that amount of cash, and she needs to realize you have other obligations too. Your son grew up most of his life without a father to support him, through no fault of your own as you were unaware of his existence. It's time your stepdaughter realizes it's not all about her anymore. It is lucky to have financial support from so many people. Her lack of gratitude is shocking. As you said, her grandparents are making up the difference, so what is the problem? Not the a-hole. Opie, you are way kinder and considerate than a lot of fathers. Your stepdaughter has people to help her. Your son does not. It's incredibly important that you help them both, and you are. I would consider speaking to your daughter. She may feel that you chose your bio kid over her. Explain why you made this decision. You didn't pick your son over her because he's biological. You chose to help him because she has more privilege and good fortune than he does. Edit. This is likely why she wasn't upset about the money until she found out who you gave it to. And now for the update. I saw that I was not the a-hole from the comments, but I did disagree with a few which stated that I had no obligation to pay for her education. I feel like I have an obligation to her and my wife to take care of them. I did see some comments about splitting it equally, but I think it's not fair to my stepdaughter to break the promise I had made, as she would have changed her plans too if I did that. I also found comments from people who have gone through a similar situation very insightful and helpful. I didn't need to speak to her as she apologized for making a big deal out of it when she knew she was going to get money from her grandparents. I accepted her apology and I left it there, as I felt I shouldn't try to pry when she was taking a huge step by apologizing for her mistake. We watched the Euro final together as we are both huge soccer fans, and she made some comments about if I wanted my son there, which I ignored as I felt it was coming from a place of hurt, and she was poking fun at me and not my son. It is true that I'm less cautious when interacting with my son. It is not because I don't think of her as my daughter, but due to our relationship suffering every time I tried to play the role of her father. I didn't want to disrespect the memory of her dad, and our relationship improved a lot when I stopped trying to spend time with her or parent her, as she told me. I think I made a huge mistake with this. I didn't renegotiate the implied line that were drawn early in her teenage years because I was scared of hurting her and myself. I was a coward. I drove her to her grandparents this week, and it was mostly just driving in silence. But I did bring up that she would get to play soccer again, and I hoped I could attend more matches this school year. She smiled and nodded, and said that she would like that. We then talked about football for most of the drive back. It was nice, and I think we used to do this often. It also struck me that she plays the same position that I used to play, which made me a bit emotional. My wife has suggested about family counseling. My daughter wants to do it too, so yeah. Probably need to budget for that, but I think it will be worth it. Edit. If I was not clear, I am still giving my son the money I told I would give him. That has not changed. After reading up on your situation, although I get your stepdaughter is likely feeling jealous, I just hope your son who hasn't had a dad or any good financial support isn't being looked over by a kid who has been supported and loved just because she's jealous. I think you've done what you can do for this kid, and that counseling is a possible option. I find it sad that both my children suffered from not having their bio dad in their lives, but I'm not overlooking him. He is getting the money and he is happy to spend time with me. I don't plan on cutting back the time I spend with him at all. I am thinking of counseling as I feel it would be helpful. But he is getting less money from you while needing it the most. He is also more willing to have a relationship with you. I feel happy for your daughter, but still can't help feeling that your son is getting the short end of the stick. If you get sued for back child support, you would owe him so much money. I know I'm not being fair to him. However, I have promised him that I will help him with his career. He is planning to study in a field which is adjacent to mine, and I'm planning to help him land internships and help him out. He is fine with the help that he is getting. He was planning on just taking student loans, and any help that he gets feels huge for him. I really wish I had known I had a son a few years earlier. I could have done more for him and saved up more for him. So all about your stepdaughter and her college fund, but no mention about your bio son? This post was about my conflict with my stepdaughter. I have a warm relationship with my son, and we get on well. If you're asking if he's still getting the money, yes, he is. That has not changed. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my brother and his son out after what his son did at my daughter's birthday party? My daughter Nora, 16, loves baking and is dedicated to learning more about it. This summer, she's focusing on learning to make ice cream with different types and flavors. She makes great homemade ice cream. Now, her birthday was last week. The family of Nora's friends and their parents came. She handled preparing desserts and prepared homemade berry ice cream cups and served everyone at the party. She and her girlfriends wanted to wait to eat their ice cream later, so she left their plate in the freezer. When it was time for them to have ice cream, Nora went inside the kitchen to get the plate. On her way to her friends, she was stopped by her cousin Elijah, 14, who has a bit of bad attitude, but is spoiled because of his heart condition. He wanted to take 2 cups of ice cream for him and her brother Sean, but she refused to let him take any, because he and Sean already had ice cream while Nora and friends still hadn't. They began exchanging words, and Elijah began shouting at her and pressuring her to let him have some. When she said no again, he took the whole plate out of her hand and tossed it into the pool that already had kids in it. There was loud noise when Nora screamed, "Mom," and I ran out. The guests followed. I saw Nora cry, pointing at the pool, saying Elijah tossed the ice cream into the pool because she declined to share her friend's ice cream with him. Elijah was sitting pretending to play on his phone, completely denying it happened, and saying Nora accidentally dropped the plate. He had nothing to do with it. Nora's friends said he was lying, but my son Sean sided with his cousin and said Nora was lying. He got punished for lying on his sister, but Nora swore Elijah did it. So I told him to get up from his chair and immediately demanded he confess and apologize. He kept stalling, till my brother intervened, telling me to stop humiliating his sick son and wanting him to confess and apologize for something he didn't do. I told him I believe my daughter and I trust her to tell the truth, unlike a son who doesn't respect anyone. My brother argued with me when I kept demanding Elijah to apologize, and when he refused, I told him to take his son and leave. Mom told me to take it easy, but I repeatedly told him to take Elijah and just leave. My brother called me a horrible sister and a horrible aunt to kick him and Elijah out after they came to celebrate Nora's birthday and brought her gifts. He accused me of creating hate towards his sick kid and had a family tell me kicking him and Elijah out in front of everyone was cruel. They wanted us to reconcile, but I refused since Nora hasn't even been offered an apology. This could have been an exaggeration on my part, but Nora doesn't deserve this treatment no matter the circumstances. It's sad that my family think we should just suck it up because my nephew has chronic medical condition. Not an a-hole. Just because he has a heart condition doesn't mean he's not a little a-hole. Sounds like your brother turned him into one. Yeah, someone last night isn't gonna give two craps about his heart condition, and it's gonna be a rude awakening for him. Husband's step-nephew has a chronic condition, so his parents have spoiled him into an unbearable jerk. They've also spoiled his sister into a brat, because they feel so bad for her having to deal with a high-maintenance brother. They're just kids, and my kid-loving husband is just over it. He pays them zero attention, and it drives the brats crazy during family get-together because they are so used to being the center of all attention. Definitely not a hole. Your sick nephew is a bully who uses his condition to get away with terrible behavior, and your brother has enabled it. Good for you for sticking up for your daughter. I am a retired nurse who worked years ago with chronically ill kids. Some do get spoiled by their parents, who have guilt over having a sick kid, even though they are not at fault. They often have a fear that the child will die, which is possible, and overcompensate by not holding the kid responsible for his behavior. I personally know a young man who had leukemia as a child, did not respond to chemo, had a last-ditch bone marrow transplant that saved him. His parents spoiled him terribly, and he grew up to be obnoxious and entitled. Not a hole. It is time for nephew to learn some manners and empathy, if it is not already too late.